I left a note in my apartment hallway as a joke, and it accidentally became the reason I didn't feel alone anymore. When I moved into my new apartment, I kept telling everyone I was fine, and the annoying part was that it wasn't even a lie. I had internet, I had a bed, I had 3 boxes unpacked, and a single plate I'd washed so many times it already felt sentimental. Technically, I was surviving. The place still smelled like fresh paint and dust, like no one had lived here long enough to leave behind proof. Every sound echoed: my footsteps, the refrigerator clicking on, the neighbor's door down the hall slamming shut. At night, the quiet didn't just sit there, it leaned in close, like it was waiting for me to notice it. I ate standing up most nights, cereal straight from the box, peanut butter on tortilla, as because I hadn't bought bread yet. I kept meaning to do a real grocery run, but that required admitting I planned to stay here longer than a week, and I wasn't ready for that. The spoon I used wasn't even mine. It was from a yogurt cup I'd peeled open on moving day, and somehow it became permanent. I filled the silence with noise, tick-tock until my eyes ached. True crime videos playing in the background because the narrators always sounded calm, like nothing bad could happen while they were talking. I didn't even watch them half the time. I just needed to hear a voice that wasn't mine. Living alone sounded romantic before I did it. Freedom, peace, space to breathe, but once the door closed behind me each night, the apartment felt less like a sanctuary and more like proof. Proof that no one was coming home but me. I wasn't lonely in a dramatic way. I didn't cry on the floor or stare out the window at night. It was quieter than that, subtler, like a low hum you only notice when everything else turns off. And I kept thinking, this is it now. This is how it sounds when it's just you. When I moved into my new apartment, I kept telling everyone I was fine, and the annoying part was that it wasn't even a lie. I had internet, I had a bed, I had 3 boxes unpacked and a single plate I'd washed so many times it already felt sentimental. Technically, I was surviving. The place still smelled like fresh paint and dust, like no one had lived here long enough to leave behind proof. Every sound echoed: my footsteps, the refrigerator clicking on, the neighbor's door down the hall slamming shut. At night, the quiet didn't just sit there, it leaned in close, like it was waiting for me to notice it. I ate standing up most nights, cereal straight from the box, peanut butter on tortilla, as because I hadn't bought bread yet. I kept meaning to do a real grocery run, but that required admitting I planned to stay here longer than a week, and I wasn't ready for that. The spoon I used wasn't even mine. It was from a yogurt cup I'd peeled open on moving day, and somehow it became permanent. I filled the silence with noise, tick-tock until my eyes ached. True crime videos playing in the background because the narrators always sounded calm, like nothing bad could happen while they were talking. I didn't even watch them half the time. I just needed to hear a voice that wasn't mine. Living alone sounded romantic before I did it. Freedom, peace, space to breathe, but once the door closed behind me each night, the apartment felt less like a sanctuary and more like proof. Proof that no one was coming home but me. I wasn't lonely in a dramatic way. I didn't cry on the floor or stare out the window at night. It was quieter than that, subtler, like a low hum you only notice when everything else turns off, and I kept thinking, this is it now. This is how it sounds when it's just you. I don't remember deciding to do it. That's the thing. It wasn't some brave wealth, odd-out choice. It was one of those restless moments where you feel like you might crawl out of your own skin if you don't move. The kind of evening where sitting still feels louder than doing something stupid. I had just finished another sad excuse for dinner and was pacing my apartment, scrolling on my phone without actually reading anything. The elevator sign was still there in my head, out of order again. It felt less like an announcement and more like commentary, so I grabbed a sticky note from the junk drawer, the one that already existed somehow, even though I owned almost nothing, and a pen that barely worked. I didn't overthink the wording. If I had, I never would have done it. I wrote, if you need help with groceries or whatever, I'm in 3B Alex. Seeing my name on it made my stomach flip. It suddenly felt too intimate. Like I'd just introduced myself to a room full of strangers who hadn't asked. In the hallway, the lights buzzed softly overhead. I hesitated longer than I'll admit. I imagined people laughing, rolling their eyes, taking pictures. I imagined management tearing it down and sending a passive-aggressive email about unauthorized notes, but I stuck it under the official sign anyway. The second it was up, regret hit me full force. What was I doing offering help when I barely had my own life figured out? I couldn't even commit to buying real groceries. I avoided phone calls. I flinched when my doorbell rang. This was not the behavior of a helpful, functional adult. I walked back to my apartment too fast, like I'd committed a minor crime. All night I waited for consequences that never came. No knocks, no complaints, no laughter outside my door. Just the same quiet apartment, the same low hum of being alone. Eventually, I convinced myself it was nothing, a dumb note no one would read. By morning, it would probably be gone. I fell asleep thinking that at least I tried something, even if I hoped secretly that nothing would come of it. The next evening, I was sitting on the floor eating cereal straight from the bowl, back against the couch I hadn't bothered to position properly yet, when there was a knock on my door. I froze. It wasn't loud or aggressive. Just a normal, polite knock, but my heart immediately jumped into panic mode, like it always did when someone crossed the invisible line between outside world and me. My first thought was that management had seen the note. My second was that someone was mad. My third was that I should pretend I wasn't home. The knock came again. I stood there for a second, spoon in hand, debating my entire personality. Finally, I set the bowl down and opened the door just enough to peek out. There was an older man standing there, maybe late 60s. Gray hair, kind eyes, shoulders slumped under the weight of 2 grocery bags, and a case of water bottles balanced against his leg. He looked tired in a way that felt familiar. You Alex?" he asked. "Yes," I said, surprised my voice worked. "I'm dieter, 4th floor." He shifted the water case slightly like it was winning the argument. "Saw your note. Didn't want to bother you, but these stairs and I aren't on speaking terms today." Relief washed over me so fast it almost made me dizzy. He wasn't angry. He wasn't weird. He was just someone who needed help, yeah. I said quickly, stepping aside, of course. "I can help." We didn't talk much while we carried his groceries up. The stairwell smelled like dust and old cleaner. My arms burned a little, but it felt good useful. Like my body finally had a reason to be doing something. At his floor, he thanked me twice, 3 times maybe. Then he smiled and said, "Appreciate you, kid." And that was it. I went back down to my apartment feeling strangely lighter. Nothing dramatic had happened. No big conversation. No life-changing moment. But when I closed my door, the apartment didn't feel quite as empty as it had the night before. And for the first time since moving in, I realized someone in this building knew my name. I told myself that dieter was a one-time thing. A fluke, a small, polite interaction that would quietly end and never be mentioned again. I went to bed that night expecting the hallway to go back to being what it always was: silent, anonymous, forgettable. It didn't. The very next evening, there was another knock. This time it was a woman juggling a stroller and a toddler who was chanting up, 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 like it was a personal mission statement. She looked exhausted and hopeful at the same time. "I saw the note," she said, already half apologizing. "Just to the 2nd floor. After that came a college-aged guy dragging a boxed desk chair that clearly weighed more than his dignity, then a woman with 2 overflowing laundry bags. Each knock made my nerves spike a little less. Each thank you landed a little heavier than it should have. Somewhere along the way, the elevator door turned into a conversation. People started adding their own sticky notes around mine. Little jokes, updates, complaints that felt more like inside humor than anger. "Alex is a real one, 2D elevator guy coming Thursday, maybe management. Someone took my DoorDash again, 4A. I started stopping in front of the elevator just to read them. Sometimes I laughed out loud, alone in the hallway like a lunatic, but it felt good, like proof that the building wasn't just walls and stairs. It was people. I noticed myself recognizing footsteps, voices. The guy from 2D always pacing when his food was late. The mom whisper, singing to calm her kid. We didn't talk much beyond quick hellos, but we existed to each other now. It was strange how fast it happened. No group chat, no introductions, just a shared inconvenience and a handful of sticky notes. I hadn't meant to start anything. I just wanted to do one small, harmless thing, but somehow, without asking, I'd opened a door I didn't know I needed open. And every time someone knocked, I realized I wasn't hoping they'd go away anymore. At some point, the elevator stopped being about the elevator. I'd catch myself slowing down as I reached the lobby, already scanning the doors before I even realized I was doing it. The sticky notes had multiplied, overlapping like a messy collage of handwriting and humor. Some were sarcastic, some were helpful, a few were aggressively passive-aggressive, but together, they sounded like voices instead of complaints. People I still hadn't properly met had personalities now. I could tell who was dramatic, who was practical, who was bored enough to be funny about it. The building had opinions, it had jokes, it had timing. And then there was one note that didn't try to be clever at all. I got home late one night, shoes kicked off, brain still buzzing from the day. I glanced at the elevator out of habit and almost walked past it. Then I noticed the handwriting, small, careful, like the person had pressed the pen down gently. "If you ever need anything, 1C Marta." That was it. No joke, no explanation. I stood there longer than I meant to. The hallway was empty, quiet except for the faint hum of the lights. The note wasn't dramatic, but it felt intentional, like someone had thought about me specifically, not just the situation. I didn't know Marta. I couldn't picture her face, but seeing that note made something in my chest loosen in a way I wasn't expecting. I'd been the helper, the girl in 3B, the one with the sticky note. This was the first time someone had turned it around. I peeled the edge of the note just to check it was real. It was slightly crooked, carefully placed. I didn't take it down. I didn't respond with another note. I just let it sit there, existing, like a quiet promise I wasn't sure I deserved yet. When I went back to my apartment, I realized something had shifted. The building didn't feel like a place I was hiding in anymore. It felt like a place that noticed when I showed up. It happened late, in that blurry hour when the day has technically ended but your brain hasn't gotten the message yet. I was taking the trash down, half asleep, hair in a messy knot, wearing the kind of hoodie you don't want to be seen in by anyone who knows you. I almost didn't notice Dieter at first. He was sitting on the third floor landing, elbows resting on his knees, staring at nothing in particular. Not struggling, not dramatic, just paused, stares kicking your ass. I asked, mostly to announce my presence. He looked up and smiled. Nah, just taking a break. I hovered awkwardly, unsure if I should keep going. Then he tilted his head. How you doing, Alex? Actually doing. I said the word automatically. Fine. He didn't respond, didn't nod, didn't rush to fill the silence. He just waited, like he had all the time in the world and nowhere better to be. Something about that made my throat tighten, honestly. I said, staring at the trash bag like it had secrets. It's been kind of strange. First time living alone. I thought I'd like the quiet more. Dieter nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. Quiet's loud, isn't it? The way he said it. So casual, so certain made me feel less stupid for thinking it. Like it was a known thing, not a personal failure. After a moment, he added, when my wife died, I kept the TV on all the time, even when I wasn't watching, just needed to hear people talking. I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say anything. We sat there together for a minute, the stairwell holding our silence without judging it. Then he stood, brushed off his pants, and smiled again. Good night, kid. Good night, I said. I finished taking out the trash, but when I came back upstairs, something felt different. I hadn't fixed my loneliness. I hadn't solved anything. But I had told the truth out loud, and for the first time in a while, it didn't echo back at me. After that night, things didn't change in any big, obvious way. No announcements, no sudden group dinners or dramatic bonding moments. Life just kept happening, only softer around the edges. A few days later, I came home to a paper bag sitting neatly outside my door. For a second, my stomach dropped, some instinctive fear that I'd done something wrong. But inside were clementines, bright and cold from the fridge, with a small note folded on top. You look like you need vitamin and CM. I laughed out loud, alone in the hallway, then immediately felt ridiculous for how much it meant to me. No one had ever left fruit at my door before. It felt oddly intimate, like being seen in a way that wasn't invasive. After that, little things kept happening. Dieter started giving me updates every time we crossed paths. Good news. He'd say, grinning like he was delivering breaking news. They fixed the railing on 5. We're really moving up in the world. His jokes were rarely good, but he committed to them fully, which somehow made them better. I learned names without trying. Faces became familiar. The guy in 2D always smelled like fries. The mom with the stroller had started smiling instead of apologizing. Even the arguing couple on the second floor had a rhythm to it. Loud, dramatic, but never scary. No one ever said, we're friends now. No one invited me into their life story. We didn't exchange numbers or make plans. But we existed together. I started lingering in the hallway instead of rushing inside. Started saying hello first. Started noticing when someone hadn't been around for a day or two. It wasn't connection in the movie sense. It was quieter than that, less defined, but it was real. And for the first time since moving in, I wasn't just occupying space in the building. I was part of its background noise, and somehow, that made everything feel lighter. Last week, I had one of those days that drains you before you even realize it's happening. Work ran late. Everything felt harder than it should have. By the time I got home, my body ached in that dull, emotional way that has nothing to do with muscles. The lobby was quiet when I walked in, too quiet. The elevator doors were closed, clean, empty. No signs taped to them for the first time since I'd moved in. No jokes, no complaints, no updates written in mismatched handwriting. Just smooth metal reflecting my tired face back at me. They'd fixed it. I should have been relieved. I was relieved, but standing there, something inside me sank anyway. The problem that had brought everyone together was gone. And with it, maybe the reason we kept talking. The hallway felt longer than usual as I walked toward my apartment. No voices, no footsteps behind me, no Dieter commentary. The building had slipped back into itself, like nothing had ever happened. That familiar feeling crept in quietly, the one from my first week here, the it's just you feeling. I unlocked my door and stood there for a second, keys still in my hand, listening. The silence felt sharper than it had before, because now I knew what it was like when it wasn't there. I told myself not to be dramatic. People had lives. Fixing the elevator was a good thing. Community wasn't supposed to be built on inconvenience. Still, as I dropped my bag and kicked off my shoes, the apartment felt smaller than it had in weeks. Like it had shrunk back down to its original size. I made dinner, cereal again, and sat on the couch scrolling mindlessly, waiting for something to fill the space. Nothing did. And for the first time since the sticky notes appeared, I wondered if that brief sense of belonging had been temporary. Like borrowed warmth, like something you feel once and then have to remember. Then, just when I was starting to accept the quiet as permanent, I saw a sticky note on my door, a simple post-it, slightly crooked, like someone had pressed it on in a hurry. Elevators fixed, but we're still doing coffee Thursday 6:30 in the lobby. You're coming, Marta. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first thought was, I don't even like coffee. My second was, I'm terrible at small talk. My third was, why would I ever go? And yet, something tugged at me. That little note wasn't about the elevator or groceries or who could carry a chair up the stairs. It was about presence, about showing up. About being noticed in a way that didn't feel awkward or performative. Marta didn't ask me to be anything other than myself. She just wanted me there. I almost peeled the note off and shoved it in my pocket like it was a trap. But I couldn't, not yet. Somehow, just seeing it made the hallway feel alive again, like the building was breathing. I imagined Dieter sitting on the landing, making one of his terrible jokes. I pictured the mom with the stroller trying to calm her child mid-scream. I even thought about the couple on the second floor, quietly bickering over something inconsequential, all of them in their small, human ways, forming a kind of quiet orchestra that I hadn't realized I'd started to care about. So yes, I'm probably going to go. I'll bring my mug. I'll show up in my hoodie. I'll try to make conversation, even if I fail, because maybe that's the point. It's not about coffee. It's not about fixing the elevator. It's about saying without really saying it, I exist. I'm here, and you're not alone either. For the first time since moving in, that idea didn't feel scary. It felt like home. Sitting in my apartment later that night, I kept thinking about the sticky note on my door. Marta's handwriting had been careful, deliberate, almost tender. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was just there, a quiet invitation into something I hadn't realized I was craving, and then it hit me. Everyone in this building, everyone I'd been passing on the stairs or glimpsing through hallway doors, had probably been doing the same thing I was, pretending, telling themselves they were fine, eating peanut butter on tortilla, as because convenience outweighed effort. Trying to figure out how to exist without feeling invisible. I'd thought my own loneliness was unique, that no one else understood the quiet weight of living alone for the first time. But here it was, plain as the sticky notes plastered across the elevator doors. Everyone was navigating the same little battles, and somehow, in the middle of my own fear and isolation, I had stumbled into a soft network of people doing the exact same thing. The sticky notes didn't fix everything. They didn't turn strangers into instant friends or erase the ache of being alone, but they did something I hadn't expected. They made me see that I wasn't the only one trying, fumbling, surviving in small, quiet ways. They made the building feel less like a set of walls and more like a home. Messy, imperfect, alive. I realized that belonging wasn't about grand gestures or big announcements. It was about noticing, about showing up, even when it's awkward. About tiny acknowledgments that ripple farther than you think. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the only person in the world standing in a quiet apartment, eating cereal straight from the box, pretending I was fine. I wasn't alone, and that was enough. After that week, everything felt a little different. I still lived in the same apartment, on the same third floor, surrounded by the same beige walls and flickering hallway lights. The elevator still had its quirks, though now it actually worked, but the change wasn't in the building. It was in me. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Footsteps in the hallway that weren't just noise, but signals. Someone coming home from work, someone going out for a quick errand, Dieter's clumsy but steady presence on the landing, Marta's careful sticky notes tucked into corners I would have overlooked. Even the arguing couple on the second floor had become familiar, their voices part of the rhythm of my days. I didn't know any of them deeply. We hadn't shared our secrets or our stories in detail. There were no promises or labels. No one said we were friends, and yet there was this unspoken thing between us, a recognition, a small acknowledgement of shared existence. The hallway wasn't just a passage anymore. It was a place where we intersected, where our small gestures mattered, where someone leaving a bag of clementines or scribbling a joke on a post, it could change the tone of the day. The quiet that had once felt heavy and oppressive now felt alive with presence. I realized I didn't have to carry everything alone. I didn't have to pretend to be fine all the time. There were people here, imperfect and fumbling like me, willing to show up in small ways, and that, in its own quiet, unassuming way, was enough to make a home. So now, when I hear a door open or footsteps on the stairs, I don't flinch. I notice, I nod, I smile, because I know. I am not the only one here anymore, and that makes all the difference.